Hey folks, Joe Morris with Answers, Heaven Speaks. Well, I'm back in San Diego. I'm actually I'm in Encinitas, which is in North County coastal of San Diego. Had a flight today at 1 o'clock, Las Vegas time, which is the same as San Diego time. And I knew that I had to get into town so that I could catch the coaster by 3:40 to get up here on time to do a show at 5 o'clock. And our plane was delayed. So it left about an hour later. So as soon as I got off the plane, I ran out and I caught the bus, and I took the downtown bus, and I got to the train station 5 minutes ahead of time. So I caught the train. I got here, immediately came to my office, and I just got set up. So I'm not completely prepared, but I think I am, because we didn't get as far yesterday as I thought we'd get. But and Marisa's going to try to break in. We tried to practice earlier today to figure out how to do that, because I really like to have Marisa on here. And I know that she's working right now. She's got a birthday party. I don't know if she's going to be able to pop in here or not, but I'm going to keep putting my glasses on to see if I can see. I think when she pops on, hey, Uma, she's there. Let's see if Marisa pops in here. Uh-oh, my screen didn't. Oh, no, what happened? Oh, no, what happened here? Come on, go down. Go up. Go somewhere. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to see. Oh, come on. There was Marisa. Bring them on video. Okay, Marisa, I'm going to try to bring you on right now. Let's see. It says, bring them on video. Ask Marisa to join a live broadcast. Okay, I'm going to send an invite. And let's see if I can get Marisa on there. If you haven't had a chance to see our show from yesterday, Marisa, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can barely hear you.
Can you hear me now?
This morning, I don't know how I can hear you.
I don't know if anybody else can hear me. Can anyone else hear me that's on here?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I can hear you. That's way far away, and I don't.
Maybe if I use a headset or something like that, it'll be better.
I wonder if I put my earphones in. Hang on a second.
Yeah, it probably
Let me
work.
see if I put my earphones in, if I can.
Mama says she hears me fine.
I can hear you talking, but I don't know what you're saying.
That's like everyday life. Folks. Just real life, guys.
But we've got to get Marisa in here on this, because we had an absolutely phenomenal channeling last night after our show. Okay, let me see if that's... Go in. I think it's in there. Let's see, I have to adjust my...
I just hit audio only because if I did the video, they could see me, but they couldn't hear me.
Whoa, I think I can hear you. Are you there?
Yay! Okay, so you can hear me okay?
Yay, yeah.
All right, so you just needed headphones the whole time.
Yeah, I think I just needed headphones all the time. Hang on a second, I gotta kind of move my tripod here up a little bit. Come on, get up there.
So I'm just going to mute myself and then go to my little party, and then I'm going to be listening, and then I'll cut in if the guides are like, cut in right now. Otherwise, today's been very eventful since you left.
Oh, really?
Well, I did a session, and then...
Well, I don't see you. All I see
You're not going to see me. You're just going to see a picture of me, because if I do the video, remember earlier we couldn't hear my audio. We could only see me. So I figured if this was my one shot of you guys hearing me, I might as well just do audio only.
Oh, okay. Well, I can hear you, but the bottom of the screen... Let's see. I think if I hit the button remove, I think you're going to disappear.
Yeah, probably.
And let's see. I don't want to... Where you told me to press on some dots earlier. What are you doing? You sound like you're cleaning
I'm trying
garage.
to leave the office. Oh, no, I'm trying to leave the office.
Oh, okay. Okay, I don't know how this is all going to show up, but anyway, I still have a lesson to do.
We can try and get me on the camera, but I think that it's better if I just listen in, and we've got me on here now, so... And then watch. La, 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 la.
Are you there?
Okay,
Oh, I just
muted, and you
lost
can.
you.
Yeah, no, I know,
Uh,
because there's a mute button, which is awesome.
oh, okay. Well, do you want
Yeah.
to just stay on while I'm doing the lesson?
Yeah,
If
I'll
you
just stay on. I'll just
want
mute
to
it.
cut in. Okay, folks. Anyway, thank you for your patience. We do have a few people here on live, one, you being one of them. And
Okay.
and it says, I don't know how this screen is working. I really don't know. It's kind of got half my head.
I'll
And
check from my computer.
then it's all black down below where it says Marissa Morris is watching. It says audio is good enough. I don't know what that means. Yeah, it sure would be good if we could see you on here. Um, you want to try
Well,
doing
we
it
can
the
try
other
if
way?
you want to here. I'll hang up
You
and
want?
then I'll let's see.
Let me remove you and then try to come back on again. If I have to stop this and start over, we'll do that. Okay, are you still there? Okay, she's gone. I just removed her. So let's see if we can get her back on again. Anyway, you've got to go back to yesterday's and listen to yesterday's lesson because Marissa did a channeling from Jesus at the end, and it was just phenomenal. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. It touched on some of the lesson that we had taught yesterday, but basically Jesus had a lesson for everybody. And I don't even want to try to figure out what he said or try to remember what he said. I just know it's really important. So for all of you, go back there if you have a chance. Go back to yesterday's. I think it starts out at the top. It says Marissa starts channeling at the 103 mark. And then I said, you got to listen. This is a must listen. So let's see if Samuel, thanks for your patience. Marissa says, I'm here. Uma's in there too. But I don't see her coming on video. Let's see. Help, help. Hi, Joe. You made it back. Yes. Glad I did. Carla, hello, Carla. Carla, you're watching our test runs this morning. And Chris, thanks for getting in here also. Let's see if, oh, yes, you hear me. Ben, thanks, Ben, for coming in. And Anna Maria, thank you, thank you. Sorry, this is, okay, she keeps saying I'm here. I just requested. Oh, I have to invite her. I don't know how to invite her. Let me see. If I tap you on, no, that's only going to allow me. If I try to tap those three dots, I end up finishing. There's nowhere else for me to get you on here. Let's see if this works. What's that? No. What's that? Guest requests. Let's see. Marissa. Add. Ask Marissa to join the live broadcast. Send invite. Okay, I just sent an invite. Let's see if she comes on. Okay, there's me. Hey, there you are, Marissa. You're there.
Can you hear me though?
Yeah, but you've got a frozen face. I can hear you, but you're just kind of
You can
frozen
hear me?
on the
Okay,
screen.
earlier you couldn't hear
Oh,
me,
there
so
you are. There
yeah,
you are.
I'm here.
You're moving around. Good.
I'm
Okay.
driving.
Yeah, this is going to work. Okay. So
Okay.
I'm just going to go ahead and do my lesson. If there's anything that you want to pop in and say, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, I'll just bring you in at the end. Are you going to have too
Okay.
many? Are you going to have too many distractions?
We'll see. I'm just in the car. I'm driving over to somewhere right now. But do you really want me on the camera the whole time, or do you want me on? Okay, let's just do this. I'm gonna mute it so you don't have to hear me. But I'm gonna be there. They're
Okay,
gonna have to see me down here driving,
that's okay. You can stay on the
or I can
camera.
go like this.
You don't even need to mute it. Oh my
Or
gosh,
I can do that.
you just went dark.
Yep, because it's against my leg.
Oh, okay.
That way, I won't be moving around here driving, and they won't be distracted by Mama. Mama's hitting like, um,
Yeah, all I'm seeing right now is the steering wheel.
because we
There
were
you
trying to
are.
avoid the distractions of each other by just being on the camera at the same time. So
Okay.
I will put it against my leg, and it'll be dark. And then if I want to cut in, then you'll see something appear.
That's all right. You're still going to take up half the screen anyway, even if it's going to be dark.
That's
So,
okay.
well, this is our first time trying this, so hopefully it's going to work out. Looks like you're doing tumbling. Anyway, again, you've got to
Okay, that's
listen to
perfect. Now I'm
Marissa's
muted
chant.
and it's dark. And here we go.
Well, I hear you though.
Yeah.
It's dark. Okay, just hang
Yes.
in there, and if
Okay.
there's anything, be sure to say a prayer. Lock yourself into your snow globe, and make sure that you've got all the right people in there with you. We don't want any negativity
All
coming
right,
in
they're all
today.
here.
And I'm so
I was just
thirsty.
doing
I
sessions
think
and helping someone's mom gossip. I'm super thirsty too. Okay, I'm muted.
it's as dry
Pretend I'm
here
not
as it
here.
is in Las Vegas. It's as dry here, and
Not
it's
even
warm. It's a
possible.
lot.
You're by the beach. Yummy.
It's long. Yeah, it's even warmer here. Yeah, this replenish zero. This is pretty good. I don't know if anybody. You can get two of these for like $3 at 7-Eleven, and they got a lot of flavors. This is cherry. It's really good. It's really good. And my doctor told me that I'm dehydrated, so I have to drink more. So anyway, yesterday was a great lesson, and then Marissa had some great channeling on top of it. And I really encourage those of you who didn't get a chance to watch it yesterday to go back and watch that. So anyway, let's not have any lights on my screen. And Marissa's monitoring as we're going here, so she will, if I can keep this in my ear.
We can
Do I
chop
have it
off
in
that
the,
first 10 minutes when we edit it later.
there you go. I think I had these in the wrong ear. Let me try to bring them back in. They weren't fitting real well. I wish I'd have gotten those little iPods. Is that what they are? iPods, those ear pods?
They're on their way to you. I ordered some.
Oh, you did? Oh my gosh, they'll probably never
Yeah,
get
for your
here in
birthday.
time. Yeah, but they'll never get here on time. I'm only here
It's
until
one
Monday.
day.
What's that? Oh, it's one day? Oh,
Yeah.
and it's coming to the office?
Yes.
Oh, neat. That's really great. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Okay, let me get into the story because we're talking about Jesus and he was up there, and he was still in Perea. He's in Perea, and he went to the town of well, he's going to the town of Philadelphia now, and it was saying yesterday that after Jesus had passed away, um, Paul and Abner were kind of on the wrong page, so to speak, wrong page. Abner wanted to teach. Abner was the apostle of John the Baptist, and he ended up taking over the Philadelphia church, and Paul took over the Jerusalem church, and or was it the other way around? It might have been the other way. Anyway, Abner wanted to teach the pure teachings of Jesus, and Paul was incorporating a lot of things into his teaching, calling it Jesus's teachings. And so I asked yesterday while Marissa was channeling, I asked Jesus, is that true? And Jesus just said, Paul changed things. But it wasn't in a bad way. He was just trying to incorporate in all the Greeks and the Gentiles and bring them in. So he had to bring in some outside philosophy that he was a scholar of people like Socrates and Plato, Aristotle, even Pythagoras, bringing in some mathematics. It's hard to believe that the Pythagorean theorem that we took in algebra 2 in high school was actually discovered by Pythagoras 400 BC. 400 BC. My gosh, those guys are so smart. Those are all ascended masters. Whenever there's an uplift, the Steve Jobs of the world, the Elon Musks of the world come in, and Copernicus, and even people like Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson. Those are all very high soul people.
They weren't
Uh,
all ascended masters. They were just higher level souls that were more connected to the other side and were here to channel in information. But a lot of
well,
them went crazy.
yeah, it seems like whenever we do our channeling and getting ready to do our books, they always pointed out that there was always somebody, some high level soul would come in and uplift the world. And so I think of the Copernicuses and the even the founding fathers. So anyway, I'll trust your judgment on that, Marissa. So
Those are level 6 souls that came in. Those ascended masters are level 7 souls, they said. They're just being like attorneys. They're just correcting you.
okay, 6 and 7 souls. We're all basically down here on Earth. We're like third dimensional souls.
3, 4s, and
Uh,
5s.
3, 4s, and 5s. But for all
Yeah,
those children that would have been born after November 11th,
5, 6, and 7s.
2011, they're 5, 6, and 7s.
Yeah,
Wow. You've just, I mean,
that
anybody who've got kids right now from about 12 on down, just cherish them, because they're going to just make some big changes in the world. And it's all going to be good because they're high level
no, good and
souls.
bad, because if they're programmed with bad stuff, they can be bad. So they need to be given, they need to be shown good stuff,
Yeah,
not programmed with bad stuff.
just know that your children are a higher level soul than yourself, more than likely. And so maybe you might not want to get into too many arguments with them. They're probably going to always win. Like, I think Marissa's a higher level soul than me,
I
because
must be a higher level soul. That's why I always win.
I know I never won an argument. I never won an argument, even if I was dead to the rights and you were dead to the wrong. You always won the argument. Anyway, so let's get into it. Let me read the story. They're now in Philadelphia, and Jesus keeps there's all these Pharisees and lawyers that keep following him around, but he's also got, like about 400 pilgrims that are following him too. So he rarely gets any time to himself. But anyway, let's see how the story goes. Let's just keep the story going if my computer works. And once again, this is the visit to Philadelphia. It's the new paper 167. So throughout this period of the Perean ministry, remember, they're doing that for about a month, and then they're going to be heading into Jerusalem. But I think we're going to find out that there's a little problem with Lazarus in this one. So, and Lazarus lives in Bethany, and Bethany is real close to Jerusalem. So he's headed for the belly of the beast. I keep saying that, but it's true. So throughout this period, the Perean ministry, when mention is made of Jesus and the apostles visiting the various localities where the 70 were at work, it should be recalled that as a rule, only 10 were with him, since it was the practice to leave at least 2 of the apostles at Pella. Pella was that camp that was about halfway between the Sea of Galilee and Jerusalem, and that's where David Zebedee had set up the pilgrim camp that would accommodate about 1,500 people. Oh, and my apologies to Peter. Peter came in yesterday while Marisa was channeling it. Peter was like just kind of rolling around, kind of touching his chin, and he was kind of a little downcast. And we go, "What's wrong, Peter?" He goes, "It's so boring. He says, "We need to liven this thing up a little bit," but I don't know how to liven it up. The story is the story. So maybe Peter will
No,
come
he
in.
doesn't think you're boring. He thinks that what they published in his name was boring. That they
Oh,
didn't
okay.
publish everything that he wrote, and that he wrote exciting stuff like Revelation stuff, and all they did was publish his boring stuff. He thinks our show's great.
Oh, good. That's good to know. Okay, well, let me keep
Yeah,
the
yeah.
story. Let me keep it. Yeah, and Peter is a very special apostle, even in the story that I'm reading right now, because he's sort of like the chief minister. The chief
He
minister.
says Jesus loved him most.
Of course, he did. And if we had John on here, John would say the same thing. And probably Andrew, and even the Thaddeus twins, or Thaddeus. The
Yeah, I think it's
Thaddeus twins. Yeah, whatever. Okay, anyway, as Jesus prepared to go on to Philadelphia, Simon Peter and his brother Andrew returned to the Pella encampment to teach the crowds there assembled. So Peter and his brother Andrew got sent back to Pella to teach to the 1,500 or so pilgrims that were there. So when the master left the camp at Pella to go about Perea, it was not uncommon for 300 to 500 of the campers, pilgrims, to follow him. When he arrived at Philadelphia, he was accompanied by over 600 followers. So that's why the Pharisees didn't really want to go and nab him, because he had all these people around him. So no miracles had attended the recent preaching through the Decapolis. We've talked about Decapolis. Decapolis is just above Perea to the north. I think of them as like counties. And Decapolis is up there kind of on the east side of the Sea of Galilee. And so is Perea. It's on the east side of the Jordan. And once they head over to the west side, then they're in the belly of the beast, because then they're going into Samaria and also Judea where Jerusalem is. And accepting the cleansing of the 10 lepers. We talked about that a couple days ago, how he healed the 10 lepers, but, oh, and that never got posted. So we're still waiting to see if that ever comes up. Somehow, some way, it stayed on live for like 24 hours, and we never were able to post that show 2 days ago. But I'll get into this a little bit probably on Sunday about the healing of the lepers, because 9 of the lepers were Jews, and the 10th one was a Samaritan. And everybody hates the Samaritans, and they even let that Samaritan be in there with their group where they normally wouldn't, because they were all inflicted with the same leprosy. The midwives came in and said actually only 4 of them had leprosy, and the other 6 had skin conditions. But even so, Jesus healed them. And they're all so happy, and Jesus had told them, go off and tell the chief priests what had happened about Jesus healing them. And as they walked away, heading off, going to the, I don't know how far they had to walk, because Jesus had run into them on the road, but they're heading off to either Jerusalem or Philadelphia to tell the chief priests what happened. And the 9 Jews just kept right on going. They just went right on on their way to the temple, to the synagogue. When the Samaritan turned around and he came back to Jesus, and he got down on his knees and thanked him and thanked him and thanked him for healing him. And he says, basically, it was a rule that if somebody's going to do something for you, thank them for it, even before you do anything else. If somebody prays for you, be sure to thank them. Because this one Samaritan, the one that's so scorned on, was the one that appreciated the miracle so much more than the Jews. They just went on their way. They went to tell the chief priests, and we never saw him again. But it turns out that Samaritan, a little later after Jesus had passed away, he had become a minister. He had become an evangelist in the kingdom of heaven. So he definitely had learned a lesson by being healed by Jesus. So anyway, that was, he hadn't done any miracles since the cleansing of the 10 lepers. And thus far, there had been no miracles on this praying mission. And this was a period when the gospel was proclaimed with power, without miracles, and most of the time without the personal presence of Jesus or even of his apostles. So as evangelists, they're doing a good job. They're doing a good job teaching people the more simple way to understand God, instead of trying to keep all 613 rules and laws of the Jews, which is pure dogma. Jesus is teaching them about the Father, to do the will of the Father, and then to love your neighbor. And if you have a hard time loving your neighbor, at least pray for him, because we all can't just love our neighbors. And there have been some exceptions in here where Jesus wasn't real fond of people, and he certainly isn't fond of the Pharisees. He calls them right to their face that they're the children of the devil. So Jesus and the 10 apostles arrived at Philadelphia on Wednesday, February 22nd, 222, and on the year AD 30, and spent Thursday and Friday resting from their recent travels and labors. That Friday night, James spoke in the synagogue. Now, that would be not his brother James, but his apostle James, who is the brother of John. James spoke in the synagogue, and a general council was called for the following evening. And they were much rejoiced over the progress of the gospel at Philadelphia and among the nearby villages. There's so many villages that the evangelists are going to. The messengers of David Zebedee also brought word of the further advancement of the kingdom throughout Palestine. Palestine is the whole country of what we consider Israel today, was at one time called Palestine, with its different counties, so to speak. So the evangelists are doing a really good job all throughout Palestine, as well as good news from Alexandria and Damascus. So Damascus is is it up in Turkey? I think it's in Turkey. Alexandria is in Egypt. So they're really spreading themselves out quite a ways. I don't know. Paul was on his way to Damascus to kill some more Syria? Oh, no. Damascus is in Syria. So, yeah. So they're teaching all the way up to Damascus and to the north, and they're going west southwest to Alexandria. So now here comes the breakfast with the Pharisees. There lived in Philadelphia a very wealthy and influential Pharisee who had accepted the teachings of Abner and who invited Jesus to his house on the Sabbath morning. Always seems to be on the Sabbath morning. And he was invited for breakfast. And it was known that Jesus was expected in Philadelphia at this time. So a large number of visitors, among them many Pharisees, had come over from Jerusalem and from elsewhere. And accordingly, about 40 of these leading men and a few lawyers were bidden to this breakfast, invited, which had been arranged in honor of the master. As Jesus lingered by the door, speaking with Abner, after the host had seated himself, there came into the room one of the leading Pharisees of Jerusalem, a member of the Sanhedrin. And as was his habit, he made straight for the seat of honor at the left of the host. If you remember when Jesus was at the last breakfast of a Pharisee, when he was up in, what town was it? Was it in Pella? I'm not sure. Tiberias? No. Jericho? Oh, don't remember. I don't remember the town he was in. But Jesus sat at the left of the host. And I always thought that the honor always went to the person on the right, but apparently not. I guess the guest of honor goes to the left of the host. And so this Pharisee comes barreling in. He's a member of the Sanhedrin. He's probably got his chest all puffed out. And it was his habit. He made straight for the seat of honor at the left of the host. But since this place had been reserved for the master and that on the right for Abner, the host beckoned the Jerusalem Pharisee to sit 4 seats down to the left. And this dignitary was very much offended because he did not receive the seat of honor. Soon they were all seated and enjoying the visiting among themselves, since the majority of those present were disciples of Jesus, or else were friendly to the gospel. Only his enemies took notice of the fact that he did not observe the ceremonial washing of his hands before he sat down to eat. Jesus just wouldn't wash his hands. I mean, that was a very, very strict rule by the Jews, that they had to wash their hands before they sat down to eat. And then between each course of food, they had to wash their hands again. And Jesus didn't even wash them in the first place, much less between the courses. And they're all freaking out. They're all going, "Oh, what is this? This is the devil. He's the devil. He doesn't wash his hands." Let's see what Jesus says. So he doesn't wash his hands before he sat down to eat. But Abner did wash. He washed his hands at the beginning of the meal, but not during the serving. So he didn't do it in between the different courses. So near the end of the meal, there came in from the street a man long afflicted with a chronic disease, and now in a dropsical condition. This man was a believer, having recently been baptized by Abner's associates. He made no request of Jesus for healing. But the master knew full well that this afflicted man came to this breakfast, hoping thereby to escape the crowds which thronged him, and thus be more likely to engage his attention. This man knew that few miracles were then being performed. Little apology. Marissa's mom always says, "Don't talk about the noise that's around you. It's breaking up your story, whatever." But I am on probably one of the busiest corners in all of San Diego, I think. And that's Coast Highway and Encinitas Boulevard. And a lot of people in this area have motorcycles. So it's not going to be uncommon if you hear some really loud motorcycles go by. And the train's right up behind me as well. Kind of back to the city. So this man knew that few miracles were then being performed. However, he had reasoned in his heart that his sorry plight might possibly appeal to the master's compassion. And he was not mistaken, for when he entered the room, both Jesus and the self-righteous Pharisee from Jerusalem took notice of him. The Pharisee was not slow to voice his resentment that such a one should be permitted to enter the room. In other words, he was bummed. He was pissed. You're going like, "What are you doing here?" But Jesus looked upon the sick man and smiled so benignly that he drew near and sat down upon the floor. As the meal was ending, the master looked over his fellow guests and then, after glancing significantly at the man with the dropsy, said, "My friends, teachers in Israel, and learned lawyers, I would like to ask you one question. Is it lawful to heal the sick and afflicted on the Sabbath day or not?" That was Jesus. But those who were there present knew Jesus just way too well. They held their peace and they chose not to answer his question. Then went Jesus over to where the sick man sat, and taking him by the hand, he said, "Arise and go your way. You have not asked to be healed, but I know the desire of your heart and the faith of your soul." So before the man left the room, Jesus returned to his seat at the left of the host, and addressing those at the table said, quoting, "Such works such works my Father does, not to tempt you into the kingdom, but to reveal himself to those who are already in the kingdom. You can perceive that it would be like the Father to do such things, because which one of you, having a favorite animal that fell in the well on the Sabbath day, would not go right out and draw him up?" And since no one would answer him, and inasmuch as his host evidently approved of what was going on, Jesus stood up and spoke to all present, saying, this is Jesus. He says, "My brethren, when you are bidden to a marriage feast, sit not down in the chief seat, lest perchance a more honored man than you has been invited." He's talking to this Pharisee guy now. That guy's definitely probably turning a few shades of red from anger and from embarrassment. "Perchance a more honored man than you has been invited. And the host will have to come to you and request that you give your place to this other and more honored guest. In this event, with shame, you'll be required to take a lower place at the table." Jesus goes on. He says, "When you are bidden to a feast, invited to a feast, it would be the part of wisdom on arriving at the festive table to seek for the lowest place and take your seat therein, so that when the host looks over the guests, he just might say to you, 'My friend, why sit in the seat of the least? Come up here higher.' And thus will such a one have glory in the presence of his fellow guests." Jesus goes on, he says, "Forget not, everyone who exalts himself shall be humbled, while he who truly humbles himself shall be exalted." That's so true. I think we think so much more fondly of people who are humble than people who are narcissistic. Let's put it that way. "Therefore, when you entertain a dinner or give a supper, invite not always your friends, your brethren, your kinsmen, or your rich neighbors, that they in return may bid you to their feasts, welcome you to their feasts. And thus will you be recompensed. When you give a banquet, sometimes bid the poor, the maimed, and the blind. In this way you shall be blessed in your heart. For you well know that the lame and the halt cannot repay you for your loving ministry." And that leads right into a new parable. It's entitled Parable of the Great Supper. Parable of the Great Supper. Here comes the train. As Jesus finished speaking at the breakfast table of the Pharisee, one of the lawyers present, desiring to relieve the silence, thoughtlessly said, "Blessed is he who shall be..." Let me start over. This is coming from the lawyer. The lawyer said, "Blessed is he who shall eat bread in the kingdom of God." That being a common saying of those days. And then Jesus spoke a parable which even his friendly host was compelled to take to heart. Here's what Jesus said. Jesus says, "A certain ruler gave a great supper, and having invited many guests, he dispatched his servants and at supper time to say to those who were invited, 'Come, for everything is now ready.'" This is a parable. Think about that. Don't just think of the supper. Think of the Father. So this So the host says, "Come, for everything is now ready." And they all, with one accord, began to make excuses. The first said, "I have just bought a farm, and I must need go to prove it. I pray you have me excused." Another said, "I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I must go to receive them." I always wonder what the yoke was. Yoke must go on an oxen. Maybe that's what goes over, because that's what Jesus used to make, was yokes. And he sold them. He's not a socialist. He was a capitalist. So that one said, "I've bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I must go to receive them. I pray you have me excused." And then another said, "I have just married a wife, and therefore I cannot come." So the servants went back and reported this to their master. When the master of the house heard this, he was very angry. And turning to his servants, he said, "I've made ready this marriage feast. The fatlings are killed, and all is in readiness for my guests, but they have spurned my invitation. They have gone, every man, after his lands and his merchandise, and they even showed disrespect to my servants, who bid them come to my feast." So he says, "Go out quickly, therefore, into the streets and the lanes of the city, out into the highways and the byways, and bring hither the poor and the outcast, the blind and the lame, that the marriage feast may have guests." And the servants did as their Lord commanded. And even then there was room for more guests. Then said the Lord to his servants, "Go now out into the roads and the countryside, and constrain those who are there to come in, that my house may be filled. I declare that none of those who were first invited shall taste of my supper." And the servants did as their master commanded, and the house was filled. And when they heard these words, they departed. Every man went to his own place. At least one of the sneering Pharisees present that morning comprehended the meaning of this parable, for he was baptized that day and made public confession of his faith in the gospel of the kingdom. Think about that parable, because Jesus is not going to explain it. He's leaving it up to you to figure it out. What does it mean? What does it mean? So Abner preached on this parable that night at the general council of believers. And the next day, all the apostles engaged in the philosophic exercise of endeavoring to interpret the meaning of this parable of the Great Supper. Though Jesus listened with interest to all of these differing interpretations, he steadfastly refused to offer them further help in understanding the parable. Jesus would only say, "Let every man find out the meaning for himself and in his own soul." And he does that. He does that a lot. He gives a lot of parables and he doesn't explain them. He leaves that up to
right now.
Go ahead, explain it, please. Go
No,
ahead.
he won't explain it right now.
Oh, he will not explain it now.
I'm like,
Oh,
I don't
he's
get
still
it. Explain it. And
he's
he's just sitting
sticking.
there staring at me.
Jesus is just staring at you.
Yeah, and I'm like, are you gonna
Wow.
explain it? He's like, no.
Okay, well, here's
Maybe later.
another one. Here's the woman with, feel free, Marisa, if he has anything to say, feel free to hop in here. And bring yourself on too, so people can see you. So this is chapter 3 of the trip to Philadelphia. The woman with the spirit of infirmity. If I get my computer to work, it will be great. So Abner is the head of John's apostles. Abner had arranged for the master to teach in the synagogue on this Sabbath day. The first time Jesus had appeared in a synagogue since they had all been closed to his teachings by order of the Sanhedrin. Remember, they're about ready to kill him a couple months ago in the story time here. And they're so mad at him, and then Jesus split, and he went all the way up to Phoenicia, if you remember. And then the Sanhedrin put out an order to all the chief priests, "Do not let Jesus or his apostles come into your temple or your synagogue and teach." Some of the chief priests did not like that. They really did want Jesus in, and a couple of them did let him in. But anyway, he had not. Well, they say here, the first time Jesus had appeared in a synagogue since they had been closed to his teachings by order of the Sanhedrin. So he had not taught. He had taught in Jerusalem in the square, the temple square, and then he also taught on Solomon's porch, but he had never gone into an actual temple or a synagogue. So at the conclusion of the service, Jesus looked down before him upon an elderly woman who wore a downcast expression, who was much bent, kind of bent over in form. This woman had long been fear-ridden. Fear, 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 fear. Marisa explained that in her channeling yesterday. Jesus can hop in here and clarify if he wants to, but he said that the Antichrist doesn't mean evil. It just means you're living in fear. You live in fear. And if you live in fear, that is Antichrist. Antichrist. And this woman had long been fear-ridden, and all joy had passed out of her life. As Jesus stepped down from the pulpit, he went over to her, and touching her bowed over form on the shoulder, he said, "Woman, if you would only believe, you could be wholly loosed from your spirit of infirmity." And this woman, who had been bowed down and bound up by the depressions of fear for more than 18 years, yow. What do we take for that now? What kind of medicine do people take? I know there's something. I don't know. When people are
Antidepressant?
depressed, yeah, what's an antidepressant that people take all
Prozac.
nowadays?
There's about a million of them. I've been on most of them.
Oh, are there? Oh, okay. Well, I guess if they had them in those days, the lady wouldn't have been so depressed for 18 years. Anyway, she believed the
Right.
words of the master and by faith straightened up immediately. And when this woman saw that she had been made straight, she lifted up her voice and glorified God. Notwithstanding that this woman's affliction was wholly mental. These are the midwayers' words now. They come back in and kind of explain things. Her affliction was wholly mental, her bowed over form being the result of her depressed mind. The people thought that Jesus had healed a real physical disorder. Although the congregation of the synagogue of Philadelphia was friendly toward the teachings of Jesus, the chief ruler of the synagogue was an unfriendly Pharisee. And as he shared the opinion of the congregation that Jesus had healed a physical disorder, and being indignant because Jesus had presumed to do such a thing on the Sabbath, he stood up before the congregation and said, this is that pissed off Pharisee. He says, "Are there not 6 days in which men should do all their work? In these working days come, therefore, and be healed, but not on the Sabbath day." When the unfriendly ruler had thus spoken, Jesus returned to the speaker's platform and he said, here's what Jesus said, "Why play the part of hypocrites? Why play the part of hypocrites? Does not every one of you on the Sabbath loose his ox from the stall and lead him forth for watering? If such a service is permissible on the Sabbath day, should not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, who has been bound down by evil these 18 years, be loosed from this bondage and led forth to partake of the waters of liberty and life, even on this Sabbath day?" That was a question. And as the woman continued to glorify God, his critic was put to shame, and the congregation rejoiced with her that she had been healed. And as a result of this public criticism of Jesus on this Sabbath, the chief ruler of the synagogue was deposed. And a follower of Jesus was put in his place. So he got fired. The chief ruler of that synagogue got canned. And his follower of Jesus was put in his place as the chief priest. So Jesus frequently delivered such victims of fear from their spirit of infirmity. And that's something we deal with today. I mean, this fear, it's always fear, fear, fear. Seems like that's all our government and the medical institutions want to put down in us is fear, 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 fear. So there's a lesson here. Hopefully there's a lesson here that might stick with you. Jesus frequently delivered such victims of fear from their spirit of infirmity, from their depression of mind, and from their bondage of fear. But the people thought that all such afflictions were either physical disorders or possession of evil spirits. So Jesus taught again in the synagogue on Sunday, the following day. And many were baptized by Abner at noon on that day in the river which flowed south of the city. Don't forget, Jesus doesn't baptize. He does not baptize. He's not against it, but he just doesn't do it. He lets his apostles do it. So on the morrow, on the next day, Jesus and the 10 apostles would have started back to the Pella encampment, but for the arrival of one of David's messengers with a sad message, who brought an urgent message to Jesus from his friends at Bethany, near Jerusalem. And that would be Lazarus and his sisters, Mary and Martha. And here's the message from Bethany. Very late on Sunday night, February 26th, a runner, that would be AD 30, a runner from Bethany arrived at Philadelphia bringing a message from Martha and Mary, which said, Lord, he whom you love is very sick, referring to Lazarus. How are we doing on time, Marisa? Oh, I've only got about another 10 minutes. How are you doing? Marisa, how are you doing? I can't hear you, but how are you
I'm
doing
just
on your...
a little party, so I'm gonna go in and say hi with my earphones in, and then I'll pop back out here in like 10 minutes. But I'll be listening.
Okay,
But I'm gonna leave the phone out here so that
okay.
Matthew won't think that I bailed him.
I hope nobody
But
steals your car.
nah, if they do, then I got gap insurance, so it's okay.
Then they'll be on
Anyway,
the phone. They'll be on the phone. We'll know exactly who stole the car.
yeah, I know, right? Oh yeah, that would be. Oh my gosh, that'd be funny. Okay, anyways, I'm gonna leave the phone in here, and then I'm gonna go in, but I'll be back in like 10 minutes. But I'll be
Okay,
listening on my headphones. Okay.
okay, perfect. So it says on the message, it says, Lord, he whom you love is very sick. That would be Lazarus. They were like brothers. This message reached Jesus at the close of the evening conference, and just as he was taking leave of the apostles for the night. And at first, Jesus made no reply. There occurred one of those strange interludes, a time when he appeared to be in communication with something outside of and beyond himself. And then, looking up, he addressed the messenger in the hearing of the apostles, saying, This sickness is really not to the death. Doubt not that it may be used to glorify God and exalt the Son. Say that again. His message is saying that Lazarus is very sick. And Jesus says, this sickness is really not to the death. Doubt not that it may be used to glorify God and exalt the Son. We all know that Jesus raises Lazarus. So let's see how the story goes. Jesus was very fond of Martha and Mary and their brother Lazarus. He loved them with a fervent affection, and his first and human thought was to go to their assistance at once. But another idea came into his combined mind. He had almost given up hope that the Jewish leaders at Jerusalem would ever accept the kingdom. But he still loved his people. And there now occurred to him a plan whereby the scribes and Pharisees of Jerusalem might have one more chance to accept his teachings. And he decided, his father willing, to make this last appeal to Jerusalem the most profound and stupendous outward working of his entire earth career. The Jews clung to the idea of a wonder-working deliverer as the Messiah. And though he refused to stoop to the performance of material wonders or to the enactment of temporal exhibitions of political power, he did now ask the Father's consent for the manifestation of his hitherto unexhibited power over life and death. He knows what he's going to have to do with Lazarus, so he's asking the Father if that's okay. And he really wants to show these very doubting Pharisees and Sanhedrin that no, he's not the Messiah. He's not the political leader that they're waiting on. He's come here to teach us something. And it still goes on today. It's a simple message. It's a very simple message. And I can hear all of you saying, do the will of the Father. Do the will of the Father. And that's what he keeps teaching. You'd be amazed at how your life will change if you just do that one little thing every day. There's more to it. It's kind of a prayer. You always want to pray for your family, not just to do the will of the Father, but pray for your family, pray for your country, pray for your house, pray for your job, pray for your friends. So the Jews were in the habit of burying their dead on the day of their demise. And this was a necessary practice in such a warm climate. It often happened that they put in the tomb one who was merely comatose, so that on the second or even the third day, such a one would come forth from the tomb. But it was the belief of the Jews that while the spirit or soul might linger near the body for 2 or 3 days, it never tarried after the third day. 3 days. There's those 3 days again. For those of you who remember when we did, a few days ago, we did the incarnations of Jesus. And every time he exited his incarnation to go back to Jerusalem where he came from, it was always 3 days. 3 days to resurrect himself back into becoming the master of his universe. So it never tarried after the third day. That decay was well advanced. Decay was well advanced by the fourth day, and that no one ever returned from the tomb after the lapse of such a period. And it was for these reasons that Jesus tarried yet 2 full days in Philadelphia. He just stayed in Philadelphia for 2 days
The three
before he
days,
made.
oh, wait, before I part here, they just said the 3 days. The 3 days is because the thoughts that you think create the next 3 days of your life. So if you're not within your body and you're thinking not from within your body, that's where you're creating from, and that's who you are. So wherever you are, that's what you are. If you've left the physical body and the physical body is not thinking and you're not in the physical body, you will not be able to return to it after 3 days. But if you go back into it and then think thoughts, you create, and the body becomes reanimated. So this is why we cannot go back after 3 days.
Well, I was
So
saying that.
like
Oh no,
deja vu,
go on.
it's because we've already thought it. We've already thought the thought. Our Christ consciousness has already thought a thought, and then it goes out, and then our our human experiences it, or our spirit experiences whatever our Christ consciousness thinks up. So it thinks up something, and then our spirit experiences. Our spirit looks at the Christ consciousness as the Father. The spirit would be like Christ, and the spirit is at the mercy of whatever the Christ consciousness is creating. So if the spirit leaves and it's not in there creating with Christ, or Christ is not creating within it, then it can't go back. But that's why they're saying the 3 day thing. That's why Jesus had to save people before 3 days were up and pull their spirit back into their body to regenerate their cells and get them reanimated again. Okay, I'm going to be listening, but I'm going in.
Okay, good. Anytime you want to hop in.
Right. Okay.
And it was for these reasons that Jesus tarried yet 2 full days in Philadelphia before he made ready to start for Bethany. And accordingly, early on Wednesday morning, he said to his apostles, this is Jesus, he said, "Let us prepare at once to go into Judea again." Judea again. His camp is up in Perea, but going into Jerusalem is Judea, and that's where his arrest warrant is in effect. So he says, "Let us prepare at once to go into Judea again." End quote. And when the apostles heard their master say this, they drew off by themselves for a time to take counsel of one another. James assumed the direction of the conference, and they all agreed that it was only folly to allow Jesus to go again into Judea. Don't forget, I think Peter and Andrew are still up at the camp at Pella, and they're expecting them to come back. So they know nothing of the Lazarus situation. Unless one of David's messengers, which is possible, David's messengers may have sent up a note to Peter and Andrew. So he says, James assumed the direction of the conference, and they all agreed that it was only folly to allow Jesus to go again into Judea. They don't want him to go in there. They know that they're going to arrest him. And they came back as one man and so informed him. And they said, here's what James said. He's speaking to Jesus. He says, "Master, you were in Jerusalem a few weeks back, and the leaders sought your death, while the people were minded to stone you. At that time, you gave these men their chance to receive the truth, and we will not permit you to go again into Judea." Here they are. They're wagging a finger at the creator of the entire universe, saying, no, 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 you're not allowed to go. I could just see how Jesus would chuckle. I would just chuckle at that. If Peter was there, they'd probably make a joke about it. So then said Jesus, this is Jesus, "But do you not understand that there are 12 hours of the day in which work may safely be done? If a man walks in the day, he does not stumble inasmuch as he has light. If a man walks in the night, he is liable to stumble since he is without light. As long as my day lasts, I fear not to enter Judea. I would do one more mighty work for these Jews. I would give them one more chance to believe, even on their own terms. Conditions of outward glory and the visible manifestation of the power of the Father and the love of the Son. Besides, do you not realize that our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep? And I would go to awake him out of this sleep. End quote. Then said one of the apostles, Master, if Lazarus has fallen asleep, then will he the more surely recover. It was the custom of the Jews at that time to speak of death as a form of sleep. But as the apostles did not understand that Jesus meant that Lazarus had departed from this world, he now said plainly, Lazarus is dead. He tells them, Lazarus is dead. And I am glad for your sakes, even if the others are not thereby saved, that I was not there, to the end that you shall now have new cause to believe in me. And by that which you will witness, you should all be strengthened in preparation for that day when I shall take leave of you and go to the Father. He keeps reminding them. End quote. So when they couldn't persuade him to refrain from going into Judea, and when some of the apostles were loath even to accompany him, Thomas addressed his fellows, saying, this is Thomas, he says, we have told the Master our fears, but he is determined to go to Bethany. I am satisfied it means the end. They will surely kill him this time. But if that is the Master's choice, then let us acquit ourselves like men of courage. Let us go also, that we may die with him. And it was ever so. In matters requiring deliberate and sustained courage, Thomas was always the mainstay of the 12 apostles. Who's in there? I see some people. Let's see. How are we doing for time? Marisa, I've got like 2 minutes. I really hate to start in on a new, because we can get into it tomorrow. He's going to go to Bethany, and I don't really want to. I know I kind of goofed around for about the first 15 minutes. So what do you think? You think I should keep going on? You ready to hop in here, or should I keep on going? I hope she hears me. I can see you, but I don't hear you. I don't hear you. Oh, there
oh my
you
gosh,
are.
are you the guy that's going to take my car? Okay.
Was somebody going to steal? Somebody's going to steal your car?
Yeah, the clown was going to steal it. See? Look at him.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
How do you not fall over?
You know, I've been walking on these long legs for a long time. You know, I'm pretty old. So
It's pretty impressive.
Oh, thank you.
Pretty impressive.
Well,
Charlie's. Nice to meet you. I'll be in there in a sec. Oh my goodness, the kids are gonna freak when they see him. They're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, he's
oh
so
my
tall."
gosh. Is that yellow car? Is that one Demi's little?
No. That's Charlie, the clown's car. So his legs must shrink when he gets into the car.
I would guess. You got
Your
a
legs
nice
shrink
car.
in the car.
Yeah, I'm just tuning it. Yeah, I got lots of leg room. It's a Fiat, you know.
Oh, okay. He says lots of leg room. It's a Fiat. This is
Fiat.
like clowny. So the
Do you want to get in and start channeling, or do you want me to just do one more chapter here?
You can do one more chapter, and I'll just sit and listen, and then see what the guides have to say. Because I just got all Madison and Matthew just ran and jumped me, and the guides went pshoom off me.
Oh no, well, we want them to come back. We definitely want them to come
No,
back.
they're here. Just read, and then I'll get back in. I just got focused on something else because I saw the Challenger moms there, and they're, oh hi, blah blah blah. So, anyways, I'm back.
Okay, when the spirit wants to jump in. I can always backtrack again tomorrow. So
Okay.
now they're on the way to Bethany because Lazarus has died. Jesus knows that. He knows that. So on the way to Judea.
Lazarus. You're talking about Lazarus, how he had to save Lazarus within 3 days, and he didn't do it.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna eat potato chips? Say that again. What did you say?
He didn't save Lazarus after 3 days. Lazarus died.
No, he got him on the third day. He waited
did?
He waited 2 days. He waited 2 days in Philadelphia just to raise him up. But that's in the story. That's still the story ahead. So hop in whenever you want to, and then I'm going to back off and let you do your thing. So on the way to
Okay.
Judea, Jesus was followed by a company of almost 50 of his friends and enemies. At their noon lunchtime on Wednesday, he talked to his apostles and this group of followers on the quote-unquote terms of salvation. And at the end of this lesson, told the parable of the Pharisee and the publican, a tax collector. A publican is a tax collector. And Jesus says, you see then that the Father gives salvation to the children of men. And this salvation is a free gift to all who have the faith to receive sonship in the divine family. There is nothing man can do to earn this salvation. Works of self-righteousness cannot buy the favor of God, and much praying in public will not atone. I think of Janie praying in public. And much
prayers.
yeah, that's kind of an inside joke, folks. It's our former pastor and his wife. She'd get up in the middle of the or at the beginning of every service on Sundays to say a little prayer. You know how the wife or somebody gets up and says a little prayer. About 10 minutes later, she's still saying a prayer. She's doing a sermon in her prayer.
Yeah.
Believe me, it was very frustrating. Everybody's like, "Would you please shut up? Let the pastor come on and do his thing. Why are you preaching to us in a prayer? A prayer is supposed to be a prayer, not a preaching." So anyway, here's Jesus is saying, you don't get favor with God by standing out on a soapbox and preaching to the world. Works of self-righteousness cannot buy the favor of God, and much praying in public will not atone for lack of living faith in the heart. Men, you may deceive by your outward service, but God looks into your souls. What I am telling you is well illustrated by two men who went into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican, a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed to himself, "Oh God, I thank you that I am not like the rest of men, extortioners, unlearned, unjust, adulterers, or even like this publican." Oh my gosh. The two of them are standing there together, and he's putting down the publican as if he's an adulterer or unlearned or an extortionist. This Pharisee goes on, he says, "I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I get." But the publican, standing afar off, would not so much as lift his eyes to heaven, but smote his breast, saying, "God, be merciful to me, a sinner." Jesus says, I tell you that the publican went home with God's approval rather than the Pharisee. For everyone who exalts himself shall be humbled. Once again, the narcissistic. They shall be humbled. God will humble the narcissists. For everyone who exalts himself shall be humbled, but he who humbles himself shall be exalted. That night in Jericho, the unfriendly Pharisees sought to entrap the master by inducing him to discuss marriage and divorce, as did their fellows one time in Galilee, but Jesus artfully avoided their efforts to bring him into conflict with their laws concerning divorce. As this should be interesting, because I always say that Paul does his own thing, doesn't always do Jesus's lessons, and I always kind of refer to Corinthians, First and Second Corinthians, when Paul's talking about marriage, and I always kind of thought that was his philosophy. So let's see what Jesus says about it. He says, as the publican and the Pharisee illustrated good and bad religion, their divorce practices serve to contrast the better marriage laws of the Jewish code with the disgraceful laxity of the Pharisaic interpretations of these Mosaic divorce statutes. That was a mouthful. The Pharisee judged himself by the lowest standard. The publican squared himself by the highest ideal. Devotion to the Pharisee was a means of inducing self-righteous inactivity and the assurance of false spiritual security. Devotion to the publican was a means of stirring up his soul to the realization of the need for repentance, confession, and the acceptance by faith of merciful forgiveness. The Pharisees sought justice. The publicans sought mercy. The law of the universe is ask and you shall receive. Remember that. Ask and you shall receive. If you have faith, you just have to ask and you shall receive. Seek and you shall find. We all know that from our kindergarten days. Not our kindergarten, our early kindergarten Sunday school days. Ask and you shall receive, and seek and you shall find. Though Jesus refused to be drawn into a controversy with the Pharisees concerning divorce, he did proclaim a positive teaching of the highest ideals regarding marriage. He exalted marriage as the most ideal and highest of all human relationships. Likewise, he intimated strong disapproval of the lax and unfair divorce practices of the Jerusalem Jews, who at that time permitted a man to divorce his wife for the most trifling of reasons, such as being a poor cook, a faulty housekeeper, or for no better reason than that he had become enamored of a better-looking woman. The Pharisees had even gone so far as to teach that divorce of this easy variety was a special dispensation granted the Jewish people, particularly the Pharisees. And so, while Jesus refused to make pronouncements dealing with marriage and divorce, he did most bitterly denounce these shameful floutings of the marriage relationship and pointed out their injustice to women and children. He never sanctioned any divorce practice which gave man any advantage over a woman. The Master countenanced only those teachings which accorded women equality with men. Although Jesus did not offer new mandates governing marriage and divorce, he did urge the Jews to live up to their own laws and higher teachings. He constantly appealed to the written scriptures in his effort to improve their practices along these social lines. While thus upholding the high and ideal concepts of marriage, Jesus skillfully avoided clashing with his questioners about the social practices represented by either their written laws or their much-cherished divorce privileges. It was very difficult for the apostles to understand the Master's reluctance to make positive pronouncements relative to scientific, social, economic, and political problems. They did not fully realize that his earth mission was exclusively concerned with revelations of spiritual and religious truths. So after Jesus had talked about marriage and divorce, later on that evening, his apostles privately asked many additional questions, and his answers to these inquiries relieved their minds of many misconceptions. At the conclusion of this conference, Jesus said, quoting Jesus now, "Marriage is honorable and is to be desired by all men. The fact the Son of Man pursues his earth mission alone is in no way a reflection on the desirability of marriage. That I should so work is the Father's will, but this same Father has directed the creation of male and female." Let me turn on some light here. It's starting to get a little bit dark. See if that lights up a little bit more. Wow. What did he just say again? That I should so work is the Father's will, but this same Father has directed the creation of male and female. Well, there you go. That settles it. There's only two genders.
I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go in soon. So let's finish up this sentence, and then I'll channel, and then you can finish up with this.
Okay. And it is the divine will that men and women should find their highest service and consequent joy in the establishment of homes for the reception and training of children, in the creation of whom those parents become co-partners with the makers of heaven and earth. And for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they two shall become as one. Okay, I'll pick up on this afterwards, but do you have anything to channel today?
They were just saying that he's saying that marriage is a sacred practice. Jesus is saying marriage really is a sacred practice, as they made it in the Bible. He says it because I said, is it really that sacred, or divorce isn't allowed? And he said, no, it's not that divorce is not allowed. It's not allowed for frivolous things. The reason why marriage is so important, and when people have kids when they're married and things like that, is because your souls merge. The reason why he didn't get married was because he didn't want to merge his soul with somebody else. So you're actually like merging souls, merging timelines, merging like your life plan basically with somebody else. So if you marry the wrong person, you've just merged your life plan with somebody else's life plan, and you're going to be living in sin. You're going to be living outside of your life's plan. So a lot of people will get married out of fear of being alone, or they'll get married out of fear of not having enough money, or they want to get taken care of, or whatever. They women, it's like, oh, I want this man to take care of me because I'm afraid that I won't be able to take care of myself, or I won't be able to find somebody that I love that can actually take care of me. This actually leads them down a path where they're not even on God's path for them, or their own path for themselves, because it's made out of fear. So he's saying that when marriage is done out of fear, this is something that you will not end up happy in. You can convince yourself all day long. He says you can convince yourself all day long that you're happy. You can say, oh, but look at this house, and oh, look at these children I've had, and oh, look at this town I live in, and oh, look at, I don't have to want for anything. But are you in love at the end of the day? Do you love the person? Are they your best friend? Do you enjoy time with them? Do you love this person that you have merged with, in essence, that you're sharing your life with? And many people will die due to lack of love in their life. This is why people die. They die from lack of love. Many people are alone, lonely. They commit suicide, or they go out and they have extramarital affairs, and then they embarrass everybody and their children and themselves. And so marriage should be taken very seriously. And when you get married, you must love the person, and you must love them because you love them, not because of everything that they bring to the table. This can have something to do with it, but this should not be a marriage out of fear. Any marriage out of fear is no bueno. That's my words. That was Peter's words. No bueno. He says, many of us can create, and we can create the lives that we love within our own minds. But when we become married to another person that doesn't have that same life in mind, we will not be able to create it, because we have another piece of us. We're married. We're one. We're one now. So you can use all the creation power in the world to create something, but if they are wanting to create something different, then it's going to be clashing, and life is just going to end up becoming separate, and then you're going to end up not married. But we can keep fighting for things, and for the kids or whatever. But that's not showing children the way to actually love somebody and be with somebody that you love, and be with somebody that you want to co-create a life with, because marriage is about creation. It's about the divine feminine and the divine masculine coming together to create a soul that will create other souls that will then create a physical body for that soul to embody. So it's the immaculate conception prior to the conception of a physical being. So prior to anyone having a child, and they have the immaculate conception where they create a soul, and that soul comes down and it's within the parent's field, and it's born. And when it's born, that's when they conceive, and they conceive the child, and then that soul is born within the second of conception. That soul enters into the body, the very second. But prior to entering into that body, the soul lives within the parent's field for anywhere between 2 to 3 years, and they've immaculately conceived it just through the thought and the desire and the love of wanting it to come together. Many times a woman or a man will immaculate conception of a soul. They'll have a soul within their field, and then they'll become afraid, and then they'll leave their spouse, and they'll end up going and getting pregnant with somebody else. Now this soul is very confused because it's not within the DNA that it planned to be in. And that's many times with children that will like stillbirths and stuff like that, or miscarriages and things like that, because the soul doesn't match with the body that was made for them. That being said, if you look at your life and you look at your parents, or you look at your friends, or you look at the people around you, and you see who is happy in my life, who is happy in my life, you may say the ones that are alone, but the ones that are alone want to be with somebody. The ones that are with somebody sometimes want to be alone. Sometimes they're happy, but a lot of times they're not, because they don't ask God to come in and through Christ infuse the souls together, bringing healing to them so that their paths can enter into each other's and be harmonious. Prayer can heal anything. This does not mean go out and divorce because you married for the wrong reasons. This is ask and you shall receive happiness in your life by being able to perceive life through the eyes of someone who would love the person that you're married to. Perceive life through someone that loves them, who adores them, who wants to spend every moment with them. Ask Christ, ask God, ask your spirit, the Holy Spirit inside, to give you the eyes to see the person that you've married the way that you should be seeing the person that you married. This will bring about a unity of your fields together. Your soul path will be It's like when they go redirecting on GPS, where it's like, oh, redirect. Okay, now your drive is 18 minutes instead of 14 minutes, but you're not going to hit traffic. So it's like a recalculation of the soul path, because the soul path isn't about what you're supposed to be doing. It's about how you're feeling. It's always about how you're feeling. So how you feel is your soul's path. If you're living the best life in the world in your mind, but you're not happy, your soul's miserable. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's not expanding. It's not growing. It's not building into something. It doesn't matter whether you live on the corner of a city or if you live in the middle of the country or you live in a big mansion on the hill in Vegas. It doesn't matter where you live. It's how you feel. So make sure to ask yourself how you feel right now, how you feel in your relationships, how you feel as a parent, how you feel in any relationship, a working relationship, a friendship, a mother, daughter, mother, father, daughter, son, what, any relationship you have in your life, and ask God to recalibrate using Christ consciousness. So say, I now ask my Christ consciousness to connect with the Father and recalibrate my soul's plan, or my soul with my partner's soul, so that we can live harmoniously. And if you can't stand them, you can still do that. You can always change it back. But if you want to live a happy life, you have to ask to live in harmony with the person that you have merged with, quite literally merged with them. You are energetically married to them and married to them. You take on half of their karma, half of their debt, half of their everything. They take on half of yours. You guys have merged snow globes, in essence. So many of you that will be watching this may not be happy in your relationships. Ask and do this first, prior to going to get a divorce, prior to going to fight with your spouse. Ask to have your souls calibrated with Christ. Souls calibrated with Christ and with spirit, for the highest and best good for yourself and everyone else involved. We bless each and every one of you, and we're going to go party. We're going to go party. There's a big
Is it?
clown. I don't like clowns. You know what? A generation that wasn't raised on Poltergeist, we watched Poltergeist when we were younger, are not afraid of clowns. Amazing. Everyone else, then all the Gen X people would be like, "Ah, it's a clown," and they'd probably run and scream and hide, because we had Poltergeist, and that it was that scary clown was in that movie. In the 80s. But okay, I'm gonna go in there. Otherwise, I'm gonna get it from my kids and from Jeff for not being in there when the clown's there.
Good.
Um,
Well,
so
thanks,
anyway,
Marissa.
was that?
This gonna work. We can even do this when I'm down there in Mexico. That's really
No,
cool.
look at this beautiful house. This house is
Yeah, that's gonna be nice.
a very nice house.
Wow,
Um,
nice house.
yeah, no, this is really neat that we're going to be able to do this, because now we can do it even when you're down in Mexico.
Yeah, that's great. Now that we know how to do it.
Yeah, no, I
Okay,
know.
well, Marissa, go
Okay,
go
well,
have
I'll
a
have to
good
look
go have a
here.
good
Oh,
time.
there's the clown.
Go have a good time. I'm not sure if you can turn it off or what.
I can just click off and then you'll just be there, or I can just
Yeah,
mute it.
I think I can actually tap a button here that says
Hey, bye everyone. Go
remove.
to
So yeah,
discoverintuition.com, everyone, and I have a class tomorrow on getting in shape and skinny and looking gorgeous and beautiful using quantum healing, basically visualizing using your spirit and your higher self on how to get in shape and look good. It's called Spiritual Hottie. So
spiritual
it's tomorrow.
hottie.
Just
You're gonna
go
do
to
that tomorrow?
discoverintuition.com. Yeah, yeah, it's
Where's
tomorrow.
that gonna be? Is that gonna be on Patreon or is that gonna be
Online,
on?
it's online on Zoom. I do it on Zoom. Maybe I'll do it on Facebook like we do here and just make it a paid event. But just go to my Facebook page or go to discoverintuition.com and you'll see, look for tickets, and you can click on that and it'll take you directly over there to buy tickets.
Cool.
So,
Very
anyways,
good.
all right, guys, I'll see you later.
Okay,
Bye. Love
Marissa,
you,
thanks a
Marissa.
lot.
Glad you got
Appreciate
there.
it.
See
Love
you.
you.
Talk to
Love
you
you
later.
too. Okay.
Bye.
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 Bye. Let me see if I can. Okay, there we go. Oh no, what did I do? Okay, thanks everybody. I really appreciate it. We got quite a few people coming and going out of the show today. So thank you so much, Amy, for coming in. Julia, thank you. You're welcome. You said thank you both. And Anna, good to see you again. Anna, Shireen. There's I've I've never known a Shireen in my entire life, and now we have a Shireen Hijazi. Is that right? Hi, Shireen. And then we have Shireen. What's Shireen's last name? I think it's Morris. She has like three names, but she's over in Australia, and her last name is two R's. Morrs. Morris. Mine and Marissa's Moris, just one R. Melissa came in as well, and Anna again. Hi. And who else do we have in there? I think I've named everybody before. Marissa, of course. Amy. Oh yeah, Shireen McCready Morris. So I got two Shireens in here. That's amazing. Hi, you guys.
Belen, Amy, again, Julia, Marissa's in there, Uma's in there, Sarah's in there, and Luce. Thank you, Luce. Oh my gosh, we had a bunch of people in here today. But thanks everybody else to, yeah. Oh, okay. I was glad to saying you're good, Joe, in regards to bringing up the noise factor. But I am in a pretty busy place here in San Diego. Audio's good. Anna Maria, thank you, Anna Maria. Oh my gosh, there's so many people. So thank you, everybody. Chris Frederick, Carla. Oh my gosh, who else is it? Oh, we got so many people. Samuel is in there. Ospina. Anyway, thank you all you people that came on. This is going to be our new format now, because we figured out how to do this, and it's really worked out really well, having Marisa doing her channeling, because right from the very beginning, we called what we were doing bridging the gap between Christianity and spirituality. And when we first started on this, Christians didn't want to talk to me, and spiritualists didn't want to hear anything about Christ. So me and Marisa and I were just like, okay, who's going to care about this? Who's going to care that she channels about something spiritual, about something Christian? And I think we're seeing it now. I love it. I really love it. So it's still all Christ-based. Everything is Christ-based because Christ created our souls, and we all have souls. We all have souls. We all have spirits from the Father. We have spirit that lives within us from the Father. That's whether you like it or not. That's whether you're a Tibetan Buddhist, or whether you're a Middle Eastern Muslim, or whether you're, I don't know, whatever else. I was trying to think of what they have in Japan. Japan is, oh gosh, Marisa wrote a whole book about it. Thai something. I don't know. I'm old. I forget things. So anyway, we're going to do this. As long as Marissa's in the mood or whatever, she'll come on. I'm always going to do my show. I mean, that's because Christ wants me to do this show. So Jesus has asked us to get this out, his words out as far and wide as we can. And so if you like what we're doing, hit the like button. And I know it's really hard to share. I know it's hard to share. It's one of the hardest things to do, is to share something that's spiritual, because you're going to think your friends are going to think you're really whacked. But if the Spirit moves you, go ahead and share it, because we want to get as many people involved in learning about Christ, and then learning the benefits of Marissa's channeling as well, because through Marissa's channeling come all kinds of really good lessons every day. Every day there's good lessons. And she's generally, for the most part, it's Jesus talking to you. Jesus talks through Marisa. I mean, if he wanted to, he could incarnate. He could be here right now if he wanted to, but he needs his sowers, and that's what we are. We're sowers, and we drop the seeds. And then just like that parable about the Great Supper, Jesus didn't want to explain it. He didn't want to explain it. He wanted to know if this lesson was going to fall in good soil or bad soil, or on a rocky road. So we all remember the parable of the sower. So anyway, okay, I'm babbling. Joe Moris, Answers Heaven Speaks. I'm really glad I made it on time here to San Diego to get this show out today. And God willing, I'll be back again tomorrow. We might even do another one on Saturday. Who knows? I usually take Saturday off, but we had a really good show last Saturday. We had a lot of people. A lot of people. We had like almost 6,000 people. I think it was last Saturday's show that came in. Had a lot of views, and we had a lot of through plays. Those are when people watch at least 15 seconds, but then there's statistics say that if somebody watches for 15 seconds, there's about a 50% chance that they'll watch it all the way through, the whole hour. So we're real happy about that, and I think we're getting Jesus's words out there. And we appreciate you coming along for the ride. We're just the messengers, and that's it. So for Marisa, I'm Joe Moris, And go to discoverintuition.com. You can find everything out about Marisa and what she's got there. As far as she's got all kinds of meditations and things, and we got our books over there. So discoverintuition.com. So check it out. So God willing, I'll be back to the both of us. We'll be back again tomorrow. So have yourself a good Thursday night. And like I say, tomorrow. Catch you next time. Take care.